from reading Shane like an open book,
Survival, Rick. It means making hard decisions.
to turning the Terminus cannibals' own trap against them. This man was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. This is every single time Rick Grimes outsmarted his enemies in The Walking Dead.
And anyone who can't live with that will pay the price.
Let's start all the way back with the bar showdown in Nebraska. Season 2 had been this slow burn of Rick trying to hold on to his good guy moral compass while Shane kept hammering the idea that he was too soft for this world. And then came the moment that proved Shane dead wrong. Rick was forced to use deadly force for the first time to protect his allies when he killed Dave and Tony, two men who attempted to force their way onto Herschel's farm. These two strangers walked into that bar looking friendly enough. They were buying drinks, making small talk, casually fishing for information about where Herschel's farm was located. See, most people in the apocalypse would have given these guys the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're good people, right? Not Rick.
Who would find common ground.
His cop instincts kicked in, and he could smell that something wasn't right from the second the conversation shifted. After a tense standoff, the two men tried to turn their guns on Rick, but he was quicker on the draw and shot them both dead. This saloon showdown played out straight like a Western, showing just how much of a threat Rick could be. This was the moment where Rick proved he could adapt to this new world. He didn't panic, he didn't freeze, he read the room,
Unless we stand together.
waited for the exact right moment, and pulled the trigger before they could. What if Rick had hesitated? What if he'd trusted those strangers the way Dale would have wanted him to? Herschel's farm would have been compromised, and everyone on it would have been in danger. Now let's talk about something that still gives me chills. Rick versus Shane. Their entire dynamic across seasons 1 and 2 was this ticking time bomb of jealousy, ego, and betrayal. Throughout season 2, Shane became increasingly dangerous as he adapted to the apocalypse quicker than his fellow survivors, and his love for Rick's wife Lori further divided the two characters. Shane genuinely believed Rick was weak. He told him to his face multiple times that he didn't have what it took to survive in this world. And honestly, for a while, it kind of seemed like Shane might have been right, but Rick was watching. Rick was always watching. Shane sneaked into the barn, took Randall at gunpoint out into the woods, supposedly looking to join Randall's group. There, he broke Randall's neck,
You're not gonna kill me?
killed him, and then smashed his own face against a tree and hid his gun. Shane drew his gun on Rick, but Rick refused to engage, instead challenging Shane to kill an unarmed man. Rick kept talking to Shane, allowing him to get close enough to stab Shane in the chest. Instead of using a gun, Rick used a knife, making it a more personal kill, and the trauma transformed Rick's character from that point onward. What if Rick hadn't seen through the trap? What if he'd bought the fake story about Randall escaping? Carl, Lori, the entire group, they would have been at the mercy of a man spiraling out of control. More on unhinged enemies later. Next up is one of the most satisfying tactical moves in the entire series, Rick figuring out Terminus. Everyone else who followed those signs along the railroad tracks walked straight into the front door like lambs to the slaughter, not Rick. Upon reaching Terminus, initial appearances suggested order, until Rick spotted someone using the watch Herschel had given Glenn. His police background taught him many skills that he used throughout the series, such as quickly deducing the ill intent at Terminus. He noticed personal belongings from his group's missing members scattered across the compound. And here's where it gets really clever. Before even stepping foot inside, Rick hid a bag of weapons outside the perimeter. When asked what was in the bag, Rick casually listed off the contents, including a machete with a red handle, and told Gareth that's what he was going to use to kill him. And Gareth laughed. He actually laughed. Big mistake. Because Rick Grimes does not make empty promises. Even when they were captured and thrown into that train car, Rick didn't break. He encouraged the group to fashion makeshift weapons, like using a zipper as a wire saw to carve a wooden blade. The man was already planning the counterattack while literally locked in a box waiting to be butchered. What if Rick had been less observant? What if he hadn't noticed Herschel's watch? Everyone walks in, everyone ends up on that trough. End of story. Speaking of keeping promises, let's talk about the church massacre. After escaping Terminus, Gareth and his surviving cannibals tracked Rick's group to Father Gabriel's church. They thought they were being clever, stalking Rick's people and picking them off one by one. Bob lost his leg in the process. But what Gareth didn't realize is that Rick had anticipated this exact scenario. After the cannibals sprang their trap, Rick and the others revealed themselves. After Gareth pleaded for his life, Rick dropped one of his most iconic lines, saying he already made him a promise. He raised his machete and killed Gareth. This episode showed not only how calculated Rick was, but how vicious he could be. Instead of killing Gareth quickly, Rick and the others hacked at their enemies until nothing was left. Rick didn't just outsmart the hunters, he psychologically demolished them. He let them think they had the upper hand and then flipped the entire situation on its head. That's not just survival instinct, that's strategy. Now let's talk about one of the rawest, most primal moments in the whole show. Rick versus Joe and the Claimers. In a previous episode, Rick had killed one of the Claimers' members, so Joe wanted revenge. After tracking Rick, Michonne, and Carl down to a spot in the woods, Joe and his gang ambushed them. But Joe rejected his offer and threatened the group with death and violence.
Well, you didn't plan it on him like some...
When one of the Claimers attempted to assault Carl, that's when Rick made his move by headbutting Joe, who was holding him at gunpoint. Now here's the thing. Rick didn't outsmart Joe with some elaborate chess move. He outsmarted him by doing something so insane, so completely unhinged, that nobody could have predicted it. He bit Joe. This act left Joe's crew so shaken that Rick, Michonne, and Daryl were able to turn the tide and overwhelm the gang. Rick's bite marked the moment that he fully embraced his most savage and animalistic instincts, showing he was willing to put his humanity aside to save the ones he loves. Sometimes the smartest move is the one nobody expects. And nobody, and I mean nobody, expected Rick Grimes to rip a man's throat out with his teeth.
Well, half the girl, then the boy.
Let's shift gears to Alexandria, where Rick pulled off one of his most subtle, long-game strategies. Upon arriving in Alexandria, he immediately and subtly began taking control of the settlement, showcasing just how cunning and intelligent he could be. Think about it. He showed up as a beaten-down, road-weary stranger, and within weeks he had assessed every vulnerability, identified the threats both inside and outside the walls, and positioned himself as the essential person the community couldn't survive without. Deanna thought she was bringing Rick in as a constable. Rick knew he was taking over. Rick revealed to Deanna that Pete was abusing Jesse, expressing a desire to eliminate him. Deanna, however, rejected the idea, urging Rick to adopt a more civilized approach. Rick saw what the Alexandrians refused to see, that their little bubble of civilization was paper thin, and the people running the show didn't have what it took to protect it. He tested their weaknesses, read their power structure, and made himself indispensable. The Alexandrians thought they were studying him. He had them figured out from day one. And then there's the Savior War, where Rick demonstrated he could play the long game against the most dangerous opponent he'd ever faced. Some of the smartest leaders were Rick and Negan, and throughout the Savior's War in Season 8, despite Rick's group attempting to submit and follow Negan's orders, they eventually realized they wouldn't be able to live under the thumb of the brutal villain forever. Negan had the numbers, he had the firepower, he had an entire network of communities paying tribute to him. On paper, there was absolutely no way Rick could win this fight. But Rick didn't try to match Negan's power. He outsmarted him by building alliances. He brought together the Hilltop, the Kingdom, and Alexandria into a coalition nobody thought possible. His impassioned speech to King Ezekiel revealed a resolute desire to fight back, leading the charge in a two-car maneuver that was one of Rick's most electrifying moments.
Alive. But the fight.
And when the war finally reached its climax, Rick made possibly the smartest decision of the entire series. After a brief moment of reflection, Rick made an even bolder decision than slicing Negan's throat. He looked at his loyal army and told them to save Negan's life, considering all the loss and trauma they had suffered at Negan's hand. His decision not to kill Negan was a defining moment, showing he had the ability to make decisions for the good of his community, making an example of Negan by proving there are consequences worse than death. Finally, let's jump all the way to the ones who live, where Rick faced his most powerful enemy yet, the Civic Republic military. Held captive by the paramilitary organization known as the CRM, Rick was desperate to escape and get back to his home in Alexandria. On one particular assignment out in the woods, Rick took an axe to his left hand to free himself of the leash he was attached to. Let that sink in. The man chopped off his own hand just to have a shot at freedom. That isn't just outsmarting someone, that is next-level commitment. And then came the echelon briefing. When Major General Beale finally invited Rick to receive the secret briefing explaining what the CRM was all about, he expected Rick to go along with its world-conquering mission. It is safe to say that Major General Beale did not understand Rick Grimes. Like any good cowboy, Rick had a faster reaction time than his opponent. He lunged for his knife on the table and chucked it into Beale's chest, then used a ceremonial sword to pierce Beale's hand. The most powerful military organization left on the planet underestimated a sheriff's deputy from a small Kentucky town, and it cost them everything. From reading Two Strangers in a Bar all the way to dismantling a paramilitary government, Rick Grimes spent over a decade proving that the sharpest weapon in the apocalypse was never a gun or a machete. It was his mind. Comment down below and tell us which moment you think was Rick's most brilliant play. We will see you next time.